Fun fact: kiwi are flightless birds around the size of a domestic chicken and are endemic to New Zealand. The kiwi is the national symbol of New Zealand and is a common term used to refer to New Zealanders. How you doing, everyone? I have another knife review for you today, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Spyderco Kiwi. Now this is one of the new variations that Spyderco has released, the stainless steel non-locking slip joint version. There is also another one currently available on their website with the stag-handled insert. Now the Kiwi was produced previously by Spyderco with several different variations, including carbon fiber, mother of pearl, and so on, but those have since been discontinued, and in their place have been these two new variations. I have been using this guy as part of my EDC as a secondary knife, or a backup knife in my EDC for the past couple weeks, and it has been excelling exceptionally well. I've been very impressed with this little guy, especially for how inexpensive it is. Around $30 off of Spyderco's website, and of course you can find that cheaper other places if you do your shopping. So in this video I just want to touch on a few good points that I think this knife brings to the table, as well as some things I would like to see changed. So let's jump right in and start talking about the Spyderco Kiwi. Alright, so first off, you can see the close length. It is not a very large knife. The close length comes in at 3 5/16 inches long, right? And it's very, very thin, so it's a great option for a secondary or backup EDC, in which I have employed it the past couple weeks. When you open up the blade, you can see the overall length does grow a little bit. It comes out to 5 5/8 inches long. Still not a very large knife overall. Okay. The blade length comes in at 2 inches, the actual cutting surface of the blade, and the entire length of the blade is just under 2.5 inches long. Alright, you can see a very prominent, pretty cool blade shape here that the Kiwi has. Alright, it's a Wharncliffe blade shape with a hollow ground 8CR13 MOV blade. Been very impressed with the cutting ability and the edge retention on this knife. I have used 8CR13 and I do own 8CR13 MOV blades, and it's always done a great job for me, in my opinion. You know, it lasts pretty long, as well as edge retention is fairly easy to resharpen. It's a fairly soft steel. So for a user, for a beater EDC, I think it's a great option just to keep the cost down and to make it pretty manageable for the user to service itself. Alright, now you can see again that Wharncliffe blade. I'm a very big fan of Wharncliffe or sheep's foot blades. I think they're very functional. I think they're very attractive looking as well, and that Kiwi definitely adds a little something to it. All right, another little feature you might notice about the blade is this spine cusp above the opening hole here. And now what that is basically a different version of jimping, if you will. It helps position the thumb in a way that it allows you to get a very good secure purchase on the knife when using it. It really allows you to control the knife and get a very fluid motion with it. Alright, so I was very hesitant at first, thinking that was actually going to provide any traction. And while it's not as stable necessarily as jimping, when you back your thumb up into it and really, hold tight there, it really does provide a very, very good stable grip for using the knife. Alright, as you move farther down the knife here, you can see we have two very large finger choils, right, in the handle and carved out as part of the blade. Now they are very, very comfortable and help aid to the ergonomics of the knife. Again, it's an extremely comfortable user, and it really melts into your hand and forms extremely well. It also provides a dual purpose as being somewhat of a stop or a safety, if you will, for the knife. Now you can see the handle material is a full stainless steel, very similar to the Grasshopper, the Honeybee, or any of the stainless steel versions that Spyderco offers for their knives. Alright, I do like the look. It's a very attractive looking knife. The stainless steel adds a little something, a little character to it. However, it does add some weight. Alright, the entire knife comes in at 1.75 ounces, and while that's not a very heavy knife, it is pretty overweight or overbuilt in my opinion for the size. Just a small 2-inch blade. However, you will notice that the majority of the weight is concentrated in the handle, and particularly in the back of the handle here. And the weight being so far back in the handle, it allows you have very fluid, controlled motions when using the knife. Right? So it's a very controllable blade to use. So that's a very, very good design aspect. Right, as you move farther down, you can see it has a fairly nice lanyard hole for the size of the knife. could easily fit some 450 paracord in there. 550 might be a little bit difficult. For me, it just slips in my front right pocket, or you can even fit it in the little fifth change pocket of your jeans. So it's not really a necessity to put a landing on there, in my opinion. Alright, again, for such an inexpensive knife, I was very pleased with the overall fit and finish, right, and quality of the knife. All the edges are nice and flush, nothing is exposed, everything is just rounded off perfectly. So I was very happy with that. Also, for such an inexpensive knife, the lockup, both side to side and up and down play, is non-existent, so very impressed there. And for it being a non-locking folder, right, it does lock pretty sturdy, and there isn't much wiggle until you actually start forcing it down. So very impressed in that respect as well. However, there are a couple things I do wish they would change on the Spyderco Kiwi, at least this version. Right now, the older versions, the locking versions, you were able to open it with one hand. I'm not exactly sure how they were able to do that. Possibly the opening hole was a little bit farther up on the overall knife to allow a better grip and better positioning of it. However, I have found it extremely difficult, and I've only actually opened it once with one hand. Right, you can see it just doesn't provide a good gripping surface and angle to get the blade open all the way. Alright, and that could have a lot to do with the strong lock bar here, but either way, I do like to have the option to open a knife with one hand. The second thing I wish they would change would be maybe putting a half stop into the lock bar here, alright, to help make it a little bit safer when closing. You can close this knife one-handed if you stage it simply by doing that, but you can see at the second portion of the stage, it really snaps closed, and could possibly be a problem, you know, if you get your finger stuck in there or something like that, and possibly hurt yourself. So I believe a half stop or some type of safety like they use on the UK PKs and so forth would be beneficial to this design, and just prevent it from, you know, causing anybody any injury while using it. Alright everyone, now I just want to do a quick size comparison with the Spyderco Kiwi, just to compare it to some other folders that you might be aware of or might know the relative size of. So first I'm going to leave it in the closed position and then compare it to a couple of knives that are very similar. First off being the Spyderco Grasshopper here. Alright, you can see it's just a tiny bit smaller. You go down one more level, you get to the Spyderco Honeybee. Alright. And then finally one more, that's attached to my keys here, is the Spyderco Bug. So you can see the size variation in the closed length of these different knives here. Okay, now for a quick cutting demonstration with the Spyderco Kiwi. This knife has been EDC'd for a couple weeks now, so I have not sharpened it, so we're going to see how it does on some paper. Alright.
Now we cut a kiwi with the Spyderco Kiwi. There you go.
Alright everyone, now for the up close and personal portion of the video here. Just take a closer look at the Spyderco Kiwi. You can see that very nice Warncliffe shaped blade here, just 2 inches long, so it's just a nice short cutting surface. Alright, you can see that hollow grind on the blade there. Very nice. Again, there's a Spyderco opening hole, a little bit smaller than you're used to for the most Spydercos, as well as the Spyderco logo and the blade steel 8013 MOV. As you move farther down the handle here, you can see there's 2 large finger choils. It really provide a very secure gripping point to get a good purchase on the knife. Right. move farther down the handle here. I don't know if you can make out, there's several portions on the handle depending on how the light catches it, where you can see there are little small scratches. And that's one downside to the stainless steel version of any knife from Spyderco. They do expose those scratches and scuffs fairly easy, and just shows that the knife has been used. I don't mind that, however, it just is something to consider, that it will get scratched up after use. Alright, there's the lanyard hole. Put some paracord through there. Right. See the back here, the lock bar fairly flush to the top of the knife, no problems. You have that spine cusp, basically acts as a jimping portion of the blade. So overall, very, very nice knife. Alright, so my final thoughts on the Spyderco Kiwi. I've been extremely impressed and happy with the use and function of this little Spyderco, especially for the price, around $30 off of their website. And this is definitely something I would recommend to anyone who's looking for a smaller secondary or backup EDC to put as part of their EDC system. So definitely I would suggest checking it out. It's a great user. I've been extremely happy with it. It's all a great edge. It's great size in my opinion for a secondary EDC, and just been a pleasure to carry. So if you guys are in the market for a small secondary EDC, something a little bit different, check out the Spyderco Kiwi. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time.